Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for staying with KTV2. It is that time what you are going to enjoy every moment that we have here, right to the point, the program you've been waiting for. Tonight, we are going to talk about fire prevention. Fires causes 1% of the global burden of 300,000 deaths per year worldwide. Fire disaster destroys cities, families, workplaces, and wildland, as well as have an enormous impact on human health, the environment, and society. The fire smoke causes an estimated 30% of fire death in the United States and 10% of fire death worldwide. Using advanced technology to alert people to threatening situations can lessen the destruction of the fire crisis. So, when it comes to fire prevention, you cannot take any chances. You must ensure that everyone is in the know-how and about fire safety. This episode is designated solely towards the fire awareness and guidance with guests specialized in fire prevention field. Stay with us. We will have vital information for you about fire prevention right after this.
ستيشن وين اخوي الحريد؟
Welcome back. You are still with us to the program, your favorite To The Point, and we are going to get straight to the point with two distinguished guests. We have with us here Dr. WAEL, ALYATEEM Health and Safety Environment HSE Specialist. Also, Mr. YOUSIF GADANFER, Fire Prevention Specialist. We all know that you cannot beat fire with fire unless you are an expert. That's why in the program we have the expert, and we are going to start with Mr. GADANFER. What are types of fires in the oil industry? What exactly we're talking about here?
There are actually several types of fires, but if we can categorize it into upstreams and downstreams. Upstreams are where the companies where they produce the oil and exploration. And the downstreams are the refining industries. The downstreams incidents where you have fires, you have like tank fires. With the tank fires, you have ram seal fires and bund wall fires, and also you have a process fire. The process fire includes the heat exchangers, vessels, high pressure. We're talking about extremely high pressure.
Very high.
Yeah, you're talking about 3,000 to 4,000 PSI.
PSI.
That's pounds
This is
per
above
square.
average. This is
Way
way
above.
high.
Then the atmospheric pressure is 14.7 PSI.
And this one here is
3,000 to
3,000.
yeah.
Way too much.
Way too
Dr. Wael, we have people, and me included, do not know some kind of the types of fire and the accident, how they match together. So therefore, we are here to identify what is the most dangerous types of fire accident here.
Well, there were a lot of accidents happening in Kuwait recently, and about 10 years or 7 years ago, there was a big accident happened into the refinery of Ahmedi, which was, that time was the biggest refinery in the Middle East. This accident had changed the concept of the safety in Kuwait, actually, in particular in the oil sector. What happened is, right after that accident, there's a set of procedures been set for taking care of these kind of, the refineries and the oil fields in the oil sector in Kuwait. In addition to that, they've done something like safety management system. They call it HSE management system. MS. And this were, they were talking about a lot of procedures, like the safety procedure, just to take care of these kind of the facilities and to reduce the severity of the accident. Because in this way, we cannot eliminate the accident. This type of industry is very, very, very highly flammable and type of, in a way that you cannot stop the accidents. Leaks, fires, blasts, explosions, you cannot eliminate.
But you can have precautionary measures.
Control,
like
yes.
Control.
Yes, and to reduce the magnitude of the event, these type of unpleasant events, we have type of control on these things.
Right. Mr. GADANFER, we all know that fire is fire, whether it's in a house, in a factory, in a shopping mall, but there are differences in these premises. Can you differentiate the fire in the house, the fire in the mall, shopping malls, or probably in the commercial showing buildings, something like that?
The difference between the oil sector and the rest of the sectors, commercial, light industry, and residential, lays in the immense heat that is produced in the fire, because the characteristics of these hydrocarbons, they produce high flux of heat, and it's very high temperature we're talking about.
Like a human being would be melt in about seconds, a matter of seconds.
We're talking about, when you have a fire, they measure it in a distance, how much you can tolerate in kilowatt per
distance.
Yeah.
Not close by.
No, by distance. Close by, you have to have really special protective equipment, like special clothing for that matter. Because sometimes they use some special clothing to get closer to the fire to close the valve, because the valve needs to be closed, The second thing is different is the widespread devastation, because we're talking about gas leaks, and you might have big explosions. The third one, the economic loss. If you have, like, for example, refinery is an explosion or something, and there's the whole refinery is shut down, then you have a business interruption.
Dr. Wael, what have you done to control these types of fires? You must have some kind of contingency plans.
Yes, emergency plans have been set. These emergency plans are very sophisticated emergency plans, and in these emergency plans we need to test two main things. First of all, we need to see whether this plan is effective or not effective, so we check the effectiveness of the plan. Secondly, we'll check the competency of the people, and we train the people. We'll see whether those people are prepared for such an emergency or no. And also we train them on the evacuation, how to do the evacuation properly. I remember there was one accident happened in one of the oil refineries, and this plan was properly implemented. In a way, even the evacuation was tremendously done properly. I was really amazed at that time when I was there actually, and I've seen the people evacuating on the routes which they've been trained on. That was good. So the emergency plan are very important. You need to test them from time to time, and you need to bridge the gap if there's any gap. You need to test them on the effectiveness and the preparedness of people as well as the equipment as well.
Doctor, excuse me, I would love to call it Dr. Gaddanfer. Maybe probably you are better than a doctor.
That's okay.
Anyway, now you must have some kind of a plan to train the people how to control, not to put out the fire, just to control the fire in their houses or maybe in their businesses, and also to stay clear from the premises which is on fire. Not to mention how to prevent yourself from dying from intoxication from the smoke itself. What exactly you have a plan for training these people?
You see, fire, people, they think of fire as an enemy. Okay, I don't think it that way. I think fire does what it does because it obeys the natural law. Okay, it burns, you know, the fire doesn't care about me or you if we get burned or not. It does what it does. So what you and obeys natural law in a way that for the with respect to the ignition and with respect of extinguishing it.
No.
Okay. Now, having said that, so you need to understand the fire. You have to respect the fire. You have to understand that you have to know the characteristics of the fire, the behavior of the fire. That's why where the training comes in, the knowledge. If you know the fire and you know the behavior of the fire, then you can master it. You can control it. And there is a difference between what it burns in your stove and what it burns in the refinery. The one in the stove is controlled fire, but that one is uncontrolled fire. So you have to understand why it is uncontrolled and how you overcome this. So proper knowledge and training and extensive training on these type of fires, it will lead to you become a professional firefighter, and you'll be able to control the fire with minimum damage.
Dr. Wael, Mr. Gaddanfer has explained the difference between the fire in the house, fire in the shopping mall, fire in the factories and everywhere else. I want to know from your own perspective, can you differentiate the fire in the house inside the residential area, and you compare it to the factory and compare it to the shopping mall? What are the differences?
Oh yes,
he gave us an idea. We'd like to hear from you.
Yes, the differences, as he already mentioned, in the oil sectors or in the refineries that he mentioned, we have a hydrocarbon over there. And this hydrocarbon doesn't know anything. It burns, it blasts, and we have gases, we have a lot of things.
We have footage on the air right now. Can you see it?
Yeah.
See this one here? That's an explosion of fire.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say here, that it was obvious from the video that there was a gas leak, and this gas was saturated. The area was saturated with this gas. Alarm system doesn't work.
Then
at that
one spark, boof.
Boof, that's it, and everybody's gone. Even the facility is gone. And this way, I want to emphasize on the safety again and say that sometimes people say that safety is going to cost me a lot. Yes, safety may ask you to pay more now, but in the other hand, it will save you from these unpleasant events, and it will save your money as well, because this blast, of course, will have an adverse economical impact on you, as well as health impact on the people as well. So yes, in addition to that, if you want to insure the facility, if the insurance company come to see your place which they want to insure, if you have a proper system like the safety system, firefighting system, even the premium of the insurance will come down. So you will save money ultimately.
Mr. Gaddanfer, do you recommend for households to have some kind of, preventing from creating fires? Like you must have a fire extinguisher in the kitchen. You must stay away from inflammable materials, something like that, for the household to follow. What exactly you want to deliver a message to our audience?
I think the first one and the most important thing in fire prevention at home is to install smoke detector. That's your first line of defense, because when you're sleeping and there's carbon monoxide, and that's the product of the combustion in a fire, you won't feel it. You just go to in a coma and without even knowing it, and you die. You know, and the smoke detectors will prevent this tragedy from happening. It will give you a time to escape the house. Fire extinguishers, yes, it is, but you have to understand that if you came late to the fire and you see it big, you have to understand how big is the fire. Can your fire extinguisher handle this kind of fire or not?
Cannot.
So you have to, if it's incipient fire, which is just starting, yeah, you can. But if it gets bigger, then I think the best thing is that you close the door,
Leave the house.
and you leave the house, and you take your family outside the house. And also another thing is to train your family to escape and how to evacuate, and in case if there's a smoke layer in the corridor or in the house, you have to go crawl down to stay away from the smoke, because smoke is really causes death to a lot of people, because of the smoke.
Dr. Wael, what about emergency plans? What exactly you have in mind so you can educate our audience about not to do this, do that?
Well, in the emergency, if you are talking about emergency in the building, so basically we need to talk about evacuation from the building. So people need to know evacuation, how to evacuate, and need to be trained on evacuation. If you're talking about a facility like a refinery, there are a lot of plans are there made for the refineries. It talks about evacuation and talks about how to handle the emergency. Plans are really a wide type of topic that you need to study, first of all, the facility, and you need to prepare that plan. A lot of people, they don't know even the escape of the malls. A lot of people, they used to go to the malls during the weekends, but I've never seen anybody even take a moment to know where is the evacuation place, so that I can, if there is any emergency, at least I can go and evacuate myself from this place. So evacuation is the most important thing for this.
That's it. GADANFER, since prevention, fire prevention is your specialty, what is the difference between the regular fire and a gas fire? And how lethal between these two fires?
From the at the scale of the oil industry, when you're talking about the gas fire, the most
faster.
The most dangerous is they call it the vapor explosion cloud. The vapor explosion cloud is when the flammable vapor is released, and its mixture with the air creates flammable vapor clouds, and if ignited, the speed of the flame would accelerate to high velocity and produces a tremendous blast over pressure. So maybe one of the footages shows you how dangerous the gas could be, if you compare it to the gas in the house, yes, it is also...
You can tell this on the
yes,
on the air. That's a huge smoke of gas.
Yes.
This is gas.
Yes.
This is gas, yeah. Gas
in
release.
Mexico, wasn't
yeah,
it?
this is in
Okay.
Mexico, yeah.
Yeah, the gas was
There
leaked.
was multiple
Leak.
fatalities there.
And it spread all over the field.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
And it was gas by itself, and then it turns into fire.
And when I was telling you about this high pressure, 3,000 to 7,000 psi, you're talking about like this.
That's it.
Yeah.
Dr. Wael, final question. What is the difference between a regular fireman and the fireman who is working on the oil field?
Yes, the regular
You must
fireman.
have some kind of
Training.
special training and expertise.
Yes, the competency of the fireman who works in the refinery is pretty much higher than the one who works in the other places, like maybe the buildings or, the houses and other places. Because the guy who's going to work in the oil, like maybe the refinery or the field, he will be trained on handling not only to put off the fire, he will be trained as well how to handle the gas leaks and how to handle blasts and other than that. So the competency is you know, they get trained, and usually they get trained even abroad on these type of, you know, events. Especially the gas leaks, and as Mr. Yousif said, that the vapor cloud. And I remember that there was a blast happened in one of the refineries in Kuwait due to that gas cloud. Yes, in I think AHMED refinery, if I'm not mistaken. And the people actually, they tried to have the control on that leaked gas, but they couldn't actually. And right after that, as I said, the aftermath of this, they've been trained extensively on how to handle such events. So yes, the people who worked, the fire brigade or the fire crew who work in the oil industry, they are trained on this.
Mr. GADANFER, you can see on the air we have an explosion. Yeah. This is in China. Would you like to elaborate on that?
What this is one of the gas tankers. There was a huge release of gas, and as you say, as I told you before, that the gas will spread so quickly, it tried to find any ignition source.
Anything at all?
Anything, any ignition source.
To light up?
To light up, yeah. And it just fires back up to the source. So you will have a tremendous devastation. Just like Dr. Wael said, that in 2000, Ahmedi refinery was really devastated with this type of
Not to mention, we live in the state of Kuwait, the temperature is way too high, and this is also helps the fire to create itself from nothing. Not to mention in the electricity, you know, generation, something like that.
It's not only to make the fire happen, it's a burden on the responders. It's a burden on the responders who used to respond to control the, you know, the accident. The fire crew and the other maintenance or whosoever crew to help how to control the that event. You know. Yeah.
Thank you for both of you. I really enjoyed every moment, and it was a kind of informative interview. Thank
we appreciate you.
Thank you. We'd like to thank Mr. Well, he's also Mr. He's Dr. WAEL ALYATEEM. He was a health and safety environment HSE specialist, and also Mr. Yousif GADANFER, fire prevention specialist. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Still with us, we have a lot more, and in about a few moments, MESHARI ALGALLAF will be with us, and we are going to talk about the fire. So stay with us.
Welcome to the fire station. I'm Captain Ali from the Public Relations and the Media Department in the Kuwait Fire Service Directorate. In today's section, we're going to be talking about the safety precautions and the measures you need to take at home to prevent a fire from occurring. The first step, if you are a parent and you're at home, you have to know what are the risks that you are taking and what are the measures that you need to take to decrease the numbers of fire. For example, we could have electrical related fires, and how I could prevent electrical related fires. As a safety precaution, make sure that all the electrical appliances at home are switched off after the use. The second thing you need to know is when you buy any electrical device, make sure it's a high quality. And on the other hand, try to not overload any of these appliances because it only takes a certain measure of voltages. The second risk you may take at home is the gas leak. And how can I deal with a gas leak problem? The first thing you need to know that you have to go and close the source of the gas leak. Is usually the source that's connected to the stove. The second thing, you need to circulate and open the windows and make sure if the lights were on, you keep them. If they were off, also don't try to touch any electrical outlet in the kitchen. The third most important advice for today is the children being unattended. Looking at our statistics, we see that children are among our statistics playing with a source of heat. It could be any type of source of heat, whether it was the stove, playing with lighters, especially when they're unattended. Our advice as a parent, make sure your children are aware of all the dangerous objects around them in your house. Tell them how to act in case of any emergency. The most important thing and the end of today's advice is going to be how to evacuate in case of an emergency. The procedure is that, remember, get out as soon as possible from the house and gather with your family into the assembly point, as we always say. Practicing safety. You need to know, gather your family and tell them how to act. As we always say, try to use the emergency stairs, never use the elevators, and remember, if you're stuck and you could see the smoke around you, make sure you crawl out as soon as possible. As we always say, there is a primary and a secondary exit in every house. Try to use them and keep them open for in case of any emergency. For any other questions, you could contact us through our social media network, or you log in into our website. Practicing safety is always the best way to have a safe environment in your house.
You're still with us here, and we are still talking about fire prevention. And we are with us here, Mr. MESHARI ALGALLAF. He's occupational health and safety specialist. Thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome.
Well, you have witnessed about 5 minutes ago, we had two distinguished guests, and we were talking about fire and how to prevent it. You cannot prevent it, but at least you can contain the fire from spreading all over the premises that you are in. But first of all, we would like from you to, acknowledge the safety. What is exactly it means safety?
Well, first of all, I have to just enlighten something that I love definitions.
Okay.
Because definitions is make the people more understand what we are exactly dealing with. So let's go back to the safety. Safety is the absence of accident. So if you are having any place that has no accidents, mean you are safe.
And safe.
Exactly. Now, in order to reach that safe, there are many hazards that should be controlled. So let's define hazards. Hazards are anything has the potential to cause harm. Now, the safety people are classified those hazards into 5 categories. There are chemical hazards like acid, bases. There are physical hazards like high temperature, vibrations. There are biological hazards like the bacteria and viruses. Then we have the psychological hazards, which are like depression, stress. Then they add...
That's the main killer in the world, depression
and the stress. Yeah, it can cause an accident if you go to work with stress and depression.
That leads us to health. When you say depression and stress, that leads us to health. What is health? This is the opposite of...
Yeah, well, that's exactly. When you have the health, when you have no diseases. So the health is the absence of disease.
How can we control hazard? How can we control it?
All right, so let's take an example. If you have like an instrument, it's very noisy. So you have that hazard, physical hazard, which is noise. So you either eliminate that source, but sometimes the people, they say, no, we cannot eliminate it. It's very important to
but
us.
you can contain it.
Exactly, that's the second phase. Then if you have nothing to do to contain it and still the noise is very up to the limit, you have to use your PPE, which is the personal protective equipment. So such as the ear muffs, the ear plugs.
Or goggles, maybe.
Exactly. So that's the PPE which gonna reduce the amount of exposure of that particular hazard.
Okay. Now, how health and safety are important for everybody? It is important, but when you live in some kind of a hazardous environment, how is it so important?
Exactly. You know that the most value things in our life is the human beings. So we are working hard to protect their health and safety. Without the human beings, we cannot even have a one step in progress.
Sure we can.
So here will come the importance of those this an important item. So it is important. Then it's very important even to the business. If you have safety, you will reduce your losses, and that's really gonna help you in your business.
Is there a connection between an accident and a mess accident, something like that?
Yeah, well, actually, it's called a near miss.
Near miss.
Yeah, near miss.
Okay.
The accident, when you have like an injury that you need a medical attention, and the near miss is nearly the accident, but there is no injury. Like if you are walking into any factory and a rock come down, or a bike, but it doesn't hit you. It's like
it misses you.
Yeah, it misses you. So even those two, we have to report them, because if you success to control the near misses, you are directly control the
As you see on the air right now, we have an oil field. It's on fire. This is in Kuwait, right after the invasion of the Iraqi forces to the state of Kuwait. And there were a huge effort from the fire department in the state of Kuwait, along with the foreigners in the state of Kuwait who helped us. And now the people in Kuwait, the firemen, they are an expert of fighting the fires in the oil fields. What do you think that, now, how do you evaluate them now? It's not what do you think, it's how do you evaluate them?
Well, actually, the job they did is anonymous. I mean, it was really a big achievement that you fight those type of very dangerous fire in a short period of time. So it was a great job.
It was an enormous job, and you can tell that water by itself, it's not going to extinguish the fire itself. You have to use some kind of another mechanism, which is explosion from the inside to push out the oxygen, and then put in the water, and then all of that you can control, contain it.
Contain it, yeah. That's absolutely right. That's the procedure they did use.
They used it.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, since we are talking about explosions, we all know that explosion, it's about maybe gas or something else that, marry together with the spark, and then you have an explosion. Now, how in our audience right now and households, they are watching us, what exactly we are going to do to prevent this events from happening, the explosion from the gas inside the kitchens?
All right, so we're going to talk inside the kitchen.
Yes.
Now, well, first of all, the prevention of fire starts from the design. When you design your own house, make sure it has an easy entrance, an easy exit. Then you should have the smoke detectors on the places that you might think you will have fires, especially in kitchen. They are very cheap. You can find them in any shop. The third thing is to get trained, to get people training to know how to evacuate your house, how you design, and where to get those things that it might be.
You mentioned something about evacuation so quickly. You can tell on the air right now. We have fire one of the offices, and people are well trained to evacuate immediately when they see this, and also they can call their other colleagues of theirs to tell them there's a fire and they need to evacuate the premises. This is exactly what you were talking about. Evacuate immediately, try not to be a hero and fight the fire.
Yes, exactly. So let's talk about
what about elevators? You need to stay away from the elevators.
Exactly. You are not allowed to use elevator while evacuation.
Use the stairs, because all of a sudden the electricity will be cut off just instantly.
In any time, in any time. So the evacuation itself, it's about moving people away from the dangerous. Now, and that's a big challenge for the safety people, because to make sure that you evacuate everyone. So in order to reach that a successful plan for evacuation, you should have the 3 items. Now, the item number 1 is to have a good emergency plan, and everyone have to understand it. Everyone has to know where the escape route and how to go there in a short time. The second thing, you should have a team that can help you to evacuate the people, and then make sure that no one else is left inside the building. The item number 3 is to have the safe zone which is located outside the building, and that's what we call the
Shelter.
assembly points.
Or maybe a shelter. Is it a shelter or not?
Well, no, the shelter they are using
Something.
when they are something is explosion or bombing.
Uh-huh.
But in this case of fire, we have something called assembly
How
points.
important for you, in your own perspective, for people to be educated about the safety culture in Kuwait?
It is a very important, because you're not gonna feel that until you had to be in this situation. So we are really insist of people to get trained, to get educated, and the media, of course, they have a big role in that type of fire.
Okay. You mentioned something about if you are in a house or maybe in an office or in a factory, you have to have a plan for evacuating in case of fire or explosion.
Exactly.
Now, what are the differences between the residential plans, that the offices, and also factories? Do you have some kind of a connection between them or not?
Well, there are connections, but I will be specialized. Like I am working in Kuwait Institute for Scientific Research. So we have the both buildings, the offices buildings and the laboratories building. About the residential, the firemen are more expert than myself. So in case of fire, you have two situations. Is either the fire is in your place or you hear the fire alarm. So if it's in your place, you should decide, and here will come the training. You should decide to evaluate that fire. Can I fight it?
No.
If I can, I will do. If I cannot, I have to escape. But while I'm escaping, I should switch off any type of ignition that may make the fire more to spread, like gases, flames, chemical. Or the other scenario, when I hear the fire alarm, I always tell my people, do not think in case of any emergency. Just follow the procedures. Because if you think, you're going to have a bad circumstances. So when you hear the fire alarm, count for 20 seconds, because it might be false. Just count on 20 seconds, then try to switch off all the ignitions and go for your safety escape route.
These instructions for adults. Now, let's focus on the adolescents, the youngsters who are watching us right at this moment. What exactly you want to deliver a message for them in case, God forbid, a fire in your house and your parents are not in there? What exactly you need to do?
Leave as fast as you can.
Run, evacuate. That's it.
Run, yeah. They don't have to do much. Run and try to warn everyone. Shout and
That's
run away.
Not try to pick up the phone and call the fire department or anything else.
Believe me, on this type of situation, you might even forget 112.
Okay, well, one last question right here. People are trapped in movie theater, and we all know that the movie theater, like we have only maybe if you are lucky, you have two exits, one on the right, one on the left, and maybe it's crowded, good movie they're watching, and then all of a sudden there's a fire.
Yes.
Erupted.
Yeah.
What exactly you need to do? Because people, they will stomp all over each other.
Yes. Well, first of all, you should identify where are the exits. Is it on the behind or in the front? So the people are like to follow each others. So when you see all the people are going this exit,
Go to the other one.
Exactly. Don't follow where are the people
Mr.
are
ALGALLAF,
going.
you have to be smart, because people, they are panicking. People, they are afraid. They want to run to safety. I don't think they are going to have enough time to look here or there.
There will come the safety culture and the knowledge. This is what we are trying to do. So when you enter any place, make sure that you know where are the fire exits.
Once again, before we leave, I believe that I have asked you this question, but I want to stress it once again.
Yeah.
How can we improve the safety and the culture in the state of Kuwait? How can we improve it?
Yes. Well, first of all, we have to bring good examples. The media, they have a very huge role. And the most important things that is to initiate that safety culture, but give them a good example. And that example will start from your parents. If your parents are committed to safety, the kids and everyone else will go for the same purpose. So we have to start from the family, then school, then the whole community. Exactly. And we are here for any type of help or questions or anything else.
Appreciate that. Mr. ALGALLAF, thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome.
We have enjoyed every moment of it. It was really informative about how to prevent a fire, not only in the houses, also in the offices and also in the factories. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank
I'd
you.
like to thank Mr. MESHARI ALGALLAF, Occupational Health and Safety Specialist. You were with us right here on To The Point. I hope that we gave you all the information regarding how to prevent the fire. We are not trying to prevent it, but we are trying to contain it. Tune in once again next week, Wednesday night at 8 o'clock right here on KTV2 To The Point. Until that time, enjoy the rest of our programs.